Hey y'all, this is Hillary Reese, and you're listening to Hank's Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Hank's Corner. I am Hank Jr., part of Hank Jr. Productions, where I'm documenting life's moments through photography, videography, and now podcasting. And tonight on my show, I got a very special guest. Her single, All the Good Ones Are Crazy, just came out on August 5th. You may have seen me promoting that on my New Music Friday post. Please welcome Hillary Reese. Hillary, how are you doing tonight?
I am good. How are you doing?
Oh, I am doing okay now. Like I alluded to before we got on the air, I work a full-time job, a little stressful today, but then when I get to do the podcast, I get to relax and have a good time. So I'm okay now.
Well, I'm glad. I'm so glad to be here. So
So
yeah,
tell me, where are you calling in from?
Mississippi. So the deep South. I was born and raised here, and yeah, I love it.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't really get to spend too much time in Mississippi. I will confess that. I used to live in Texas. And now I live in Florida. And Mississippi was more of just, hey, what I had to pass to get to Florida, to get my wife and kids over here for vacation. But tell me a little bit about Mississippi and some of the good things about it.
Well, we're down home country, that's for sure. That's a given. But I think the people here, we're the hospitality state, so it really, really shows. You'll find some of the nicest people, people who really care about you and want to help you out. Uh, but yeah, I absolutely love it. It's just good, hardworking country folks. But yeah, what part of Florida are you from?
So I'm actually in Tampa, Florida. So we're right there on the West Coast. But as I alluded to, we spend a lot of time actually in Orlando because I take my wife and kids out over to the Disney World and Universal Parks and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I love it down there. We usually, when we go on vacation, we go to the Panhandle of Florida. So I'm not too familiar with it, but I've been a few times, and it's really, really pretty.
Yeah, and I see a lot of that with artists that they like to travel to the Panhandle, or maybe they're from the Panhandle, because that's kind of like, very close to Nashville. It's kind of like you don't have to go that far. Do you make it to Nashville quite a bit?
I do quite a bit. I'll be there at the end of this month, actually, but I like to consider Nashville my second home at this point. I've been traveling back and forth since I was 10 or 11 years old, just in the studio and writing and doing things like that. So it's definitely a place I feel like I've grew up in, and it's a town that is part of me now. So I love Nashville, and I feel like I'm there 24/7.
Okay, and you alluded to, about 10 or 11 years old. Tell everybody that's watching this, how old are you?
I'm 16. I turned 16 about 3 weeks ago. So, yep, can drive now, finally.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on turning 16, and just be careful behind the wheel. But I did want to bring up the age thing because you actually have a voice that if you're not looking at you or know anything about you, you would never guess that you were 16. And your voice is, very powerful. It's got that southern twang to it, and it's just something that I don't expect, and most people don't, out of somebody your age.
Well, thank you. Yeah, my voice, I grew up listening to traditional country music that was played a lot around me. So I think that definitely impacted it. But yeah, I grew up listening to Dolly, Tammy, Loretta, people like that. Johnny Cash. I'm wearing a Johnny Cash shirt right now.
Yeah.
So that definitely has a lot of influence on my voice and a lot of influence on my music. You'll hear fiddle, steel guitar, everything along those lines. And yeah, I love that twang in there too.
And I think that's kind of what maybe, brought me to your music, because I like that generation of music back then. And what's amazing is that I see a lot of younger people kind of going back to that, which is great, because when I grew up kind of, in the 80s, maybe early 90s, I mean, it was kind of rare for people my age to actually listen to music like you're saying, the Johnny Cash and things from the 50s and 60s. But now it seems to be making a comeback, and I'm enjoying it.
For sure, and it's definitely been unique for me to watch too, just because, like I said, I grew up on that. So it was kind of like, I don't know, our underground music or whatever, but it was just music we listened to. And now to see people rediscover it is really cool, and they can see, the value in it, the value in the lyrics and the production, everything, So seeing other people finally appreciate what I've appreciated for a really long time is a really cool feeling.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, and like I said, you're kind of continuing the tradition, I guess, of the old school country music, and I'm definitely enjoying that. But you actually, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, have a song that just came out. All the good ones are crazy, and it seems to be taken off pretty well. Are you happy with the start that it's gotten?
I am amazed with the start it's gotten. I woke up on Friday morning, this past Friday morning, when it came out, to it being number one in country on iTunes in Ireland, which I never even thought was possible. I never even really considered that as an option, just because I was like, oh, Ireland, I didn't know they loved country music over there, but I was just amazed by that. And, to see people's response to the songs, a lot of different media outlets have, shown more interest in this song than songs I've released in the past. And I think that's because this song is the most authentic to me. So I'm really happy that people are, liking me for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's great. And I do have to plug Mike Leeson with Down the Road Radio.
Yeah.
He is one of the ones out there in Ireland, and for those who follow my page know that a lot of my podcasts end up on his radio station over there. But it is amazing, one, like you said, that so many people over in Ireland like the traditional or just regular country music here in the United States. But thankful to Mike, who's out there promoting this stuff and just getting everybody out there. I find a lot of artists, and I don't know if that's the way I found you, because I get confused sometimes, but I find a lot of American artists on the Ireland Down the Road page. So
Right. And I mean, when I saw them, them supporting me, I obviously really appreciated it. But I just never thought, that again, Ireland would be a big fan of country music, but and especially my type of country music. I have more traditional things in my songs. So a lot of people, even in America, don't like that. So I never thought the possibility that Ireland would. But yeah, I'm extremely grateful to them.
yeah, and we're thankful to the Irish out there that do listen and support. But tell me a little bit more about the song. How did you come up with the concept and all of that good stuff?
Well, I had probably, I'd say, about a verse written just as an idea. I jotted down in my head, probably the first verse. And I went into this co write that night with Jason Hamer and Josh Corson. And we were like, what do we want to write about? What do we want to write about? And Jason, I think, came up with a hook, all the good ones are crazy. But we didn't know if we should use, the verse I'd came up with or start from scratch. He originally thought, all the good ones are crazy, talking about maybe a relationship or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I write about relationships. I write about myself. I write about things around me, but I've never written about my family before. And that's top of the line, most important thing to me. So I was like, you know what? Let's sit and try and write a song about my family. And everything in the song is true, down to the name. So you'll kind of get a laugh out of it. But I just, so many people live like, oh, you got a crazy family. And I really do, but they are the best and the most supportive and genuine people. So I wouldn't be here today without them.
That's awesome. So let's go ahead and play All the Good Ones Are Crazy here on Hank's Corner. Welcome back to Hank's Corner. That is All the Good Ones Are Crazy. That's Hillary Reese's new song that she just had released this month. So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are, because my understanding is around 8 years old is when you really started getting into the music and, performing. How did that come about?
I would say I fell into this. I feel like that's my response to everybody who asks, and they're like, "What do you mean by that?" Um, when I was 8, I started, singing in public, doing things like that, and taking voice lessons. And the place I took at, they would have little recitals at like little barbecue places around my hometown. And when I was 10, they offered this thing like music videos, and they had their own little in-house studio and stuff. So I did that, and I posted the videos on Facebook, and they got some attention. And so from then on, I started traveling back and forth to Nashville and working with people. And I was just introduced to this whole new world that I didn't even know about just randomly. And I'm so grateful to my fans, who I still have a lot of the same ones from back then, who have stuck by me and supported me even back then. I'm like, I wouldn't have supported me back then. So, the ones who really stuck by me then, they really did help me find this whole new career that I didn't even think was possible.
And that's cool. And you kind of joke with that you wouldn't have stuck with you back then, but really, it's still out there on your social media. You can go back about 5 years, and for instance, there's a song out there that you're singing, "Stay."
And I think I know just what I have to do. I can't waste another minute after all that I put in it. I've given you my best. Why does she get the best of you? So the next time you find you wanna leave her, baby, remind. Why don't you stay? I'm up off my knees. I'm so tired of being lonely. You can't give me what I need. When she begs you not to go, there is one thing you should know. We don't have to live this way. Baby, why don't you stay? Yeah.
And 5 years ago, that puts you about 11. And for you to be hitting that song the way you did, I mean, it is pretty obvious that that talent, came pretty naturally. I mean, I'm sure you have to work at some of it, and maybe have a vocal coach and whatnot. But at 11 years old, and for those who want to go see it, just go to Hillary Reese's social media, then you will find that song amongst others. And like I said, I'm just kind of amazed at 11 years old that you're belting away those songs.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was one of those things that I didn't even really think, oh, I can sing or anything like that. I just grew up with the radio on 24/7, with shows like American Idol on. When I was little, I gravitated towards Hannah Montana and Victorious and High School Musical, anything with singing, and I would try and mimic that. And then so when I got to be about 8, my mom was like, "Hey, why don't you try to take this voice lesson thing and play places," just because she knew I wasn't going to be a sports girl. So I had to have some type of extracurricular. And so she just figured, hey, why not try it? And it stuck. So I'm really grateful to her for that. But yeah, it was one of those things where I was always singing around the house. I was singing wherever I could in front of whoever I could. So that was just me from the beginning.
So since you started that at a young age, did the nervousness ever kick in, or was because you were so young that it just, was something you've always did, and don't feel nervous when you go out and perform?
I would say I have a little bit of nerves every single time I perform, but I think nerves keep you humble. And nerves mixed with that adrenaline is just the coolest feeling in the world. But when I was little, I definitely think I had a little less fear than I would have if I would have started now. But I had those nerves, but I also, just knew that this is something I really, really liked and eventually turned into love. So I knew I had to give it a shot, and I had my family around me supporting me. And I'll never forget the first time I sang on stage in public. I ran off stage crying because I forgot the words. So I ran off stage, bawling my eyes out, ran to the bathroom, and my mom said to me, she said, you can either go back out there and finish the rest of your songs, or you can go home and we can leave and we can never come back. Like, you can say you tried it, but you're not going to quit something halfway through and expect to do this again. You're either going to get over it now, or we're just going to say this isn't for you. So I was like, you're so mean, you know. I was so mad at her, but I knew I wanted to do this. So I went back up there, you know, wiped my tears and had my puffy face, but I finished my songs. And of course, at the age of 8, there were songs like Before He Cheats and, you know, ones like that. And then I knew, I was like, this is what I got to do. And I stuck with it. But I look back at that conversation and I'm like, I'm so glad she did that to me. I'm so glad she gave me that push to get back up there, because I would not be here if it hadn't have been for that conversation.
Yeah, so thanks to mom on that one, and so the rest of the world can hear the songs that are coming from you. So you did mention that you do songwriting. When did that start about, and do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
The first song I ever wrote was probably a song called About Me, or Day in the Life of Me. That's what it was called. And it was just some song talking about me going to school, fishing, doing stuff like that, you know, just random things. And I remember in the beginning, like, I did not like songwriting at all. But I think it was because I didn't know how to communicate my feelings, or, you know, I thought that was embarrassing or whatever, just because I was a kid. So I started going into these co-writes, and I was really bad at it at first. And I was super shy. And it might have even came across as I wasn't interested, but I was just so scared that I was going to say something stupid, you know, that I didn't talk. And eventually, as I got older, I got over that. And now songwriting is such a huge part of my career that I don't know what I do without it now. You know, it's a way that I deal with things and cope with things. But it was one of those things I gradually learned to love it. And I'll even have my moments now where I'm like, I can't write today. Like, it's not going to happen today. Or I don't like writing today or whatever, but at the end of the day, I always go back to it. But yeah, it was definitely something I had to learn to love, and now I couldn't live without it.
All right, that's great to hear. And I want to go ahead and play Woman Upstairs, one of your singles. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more.
If God was a woman, she'd make men wear high heel shoes. Spend 2 hours in the kitchen, cleaning and cooking my favorite food. Is it too much to ask for a miracle or two? If God was a woman, she'd bless me for leaving you. All these people telling me, whispering, gossiping, saying you were doing me wrong. I wasn't seeing all your lying and cheating like a bad old country song. I gave it all I had, oh, but you didn't care. So I'll be begging and pleading to the woman upstairs. If God was a woman, she'd make men wear high heel shoes. Spend forever in the mirror, 12 for 9 months, have a baby or two. Is it too much to ask for a miracle or two? If God was a woman, she'd bless me for leaving you. Down to the pawn shop, shoulders up for a light. Now we're going out tonight. All my girls and me, dinner and a movie, all on your dime. Pick any dress in our closet, we'd love to see you in it, just so you could try on. I like for a minute. If God was a woman, she'd make men wear high heel shoes, make you work twice the hours to make the same paycheck you do.
And you just heard Woman Upstairs by Hillary Reese here on Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr. Now, tell me a little bit about that song. I mean, that's kind of a little bit of a fun song from a different perspective. How did that one come about?
Well, I went into a co-write with Pete Salas, and I had no ideas. Like, it was just one of those days. Nothing was coming to mind, really. And I remember him saying, there's this idea I've got, if God was a woman. He said, I know Ariana Grande did something similar to it, but I kind of have a different thought with it. And I was like, yeah, that sounds so neat. And we just kept building and kept building off of it. But I was like, I was so sick of people, putting stereotypes on things and certain guys thinking they can get away with being a jerk just because they're a guy and they think they're dominant. So we wrote that song to kind of do a little switcheroo, and I'm so happy. It has a certain humor to it and a certain seriousness. So I love that song.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's definitely a fun song and one of my favorites to listen to. So how do you at 16 go about promoting yourself? Now, do you have a publicist? Do you rely a lot on social media? Does your family support you? How does that work for someone your age?
Well, I would say it's different day by day. For a long, long time, it was just, me and my mom figuring this out, while my daddy would be at work and things like that. But I don't come from a family of big money. We have everything we need, but as far as big money compared to a lot of other people in the industry, it's not the same. So it was really us figuring out ways to, cut corners on things and save and, have fundraisers and stuff a lot in the beginning. And now I have this social media fan base that I'm really grateful for and that I owe a lot to, but that has helped me tremendously. I did for this release. I worked with Adkins Publicity, and they have been absolutely great. They've helped me just kind of manage everything, because with these last releases, I couldn't necessarily, schedule out all the right interviews and at the right times just because it got so much to handle. So I was like, you know what, for this one, I'm going to try, taking the reins and giving it to somebody else. And I'm very happy I did. I don't think this song would have had the success that it did without them and without their organization for sure. But yeah, it's different day by day. But at the foundation of it, it's all because of my social media fans. And again, I'm so grateful for them.
Okay. And that's a good problem to have, where you actually need a publicist to start help scheduling stuff, because if you could do it all yourself, then it means, yeah, you're not quite there. But once you start needing everybody to kind of do that, that just says, hey, you're busy. People want to hear from you. People want to talk to you. So like I said, that's a good problem to have.
Well, thank you. Thank you. They really have been a godsend, I will say.
And so tell me, like you said, how often do you get to Nashville? You said quite a bit. Is that where you do your recording, or do you have a studio back home? How does that work for you?
I've recorded some around here. I'm really close to Mobile, Alabama, so I've recorded some there. But 99.9% of the time it's in Nashville, and that's where I write the most, obviously not counting Zoom or anything. But yeah, I love Nashville. I'm there so much. I have meetings there, do stuff like that. But it really is like my home base for everything in my music and, most of country music. So a lot of times if you want to get certain things done, you just have to be there.
Okay. And I just bring that up because, I like to go to Nashville quite a bit, and I always kind of like to know how often people are there and will I be able to catch them, maybe doing a show or just running into them to do some photography, that sort of thing. So I'm always curious about that. But I want to go ahead and play something that you did as your version of a classic, You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man. And then when we'll come back, we'll talk a little bit more about some fun stuff.
Take my man.
welcome back to Hank's Corner. I'm Hank Jr. with my special guest, Hillary Reese, and you just heard her version of You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man. So, I want to find out a little bit more about the fun side of you. So, tell me if you weren't doing, or if you're not doing music, what are you doing for fun? Because I'm sure music takes up most of your day, but
It does. That's a hard one because it does take up most of my day between that and school. I'm homeschooled, but that still takes up a good chunk of time. So if I get 30 minutes or an hour to myself, I'm watching TV. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm binge watching reality TV. I know that seems bad. Or, just hanging out with my family, chilling with my dogs, doing things like that. I'm really close to the beach. I'd say about 30 minutes. So I try and get there and do stuff like that. But it's very rare that I get a good chunk of time to myself. I try and go to the gym just to clear my head mentally. But yeah, it's very rare that it's a long, long period.
okay. And let's talk about food. Are there any foods in particular that you like? Any ones that are particular to your area? And, when you do travel, is there something that you like to do as well?
Any Southern food, that's gonna be it for me. So I love me some good Southern mashed potatoes with like 5 sticks of butter in it. You know, mac and cheese, anything like that, homemade biscuits. Um, I would say a good local food to me. I love beignets.
Mm,
Like Mobile to New Orleans, they're so good and around here. Getting them fresh every day, it's amazing. And when I go to Nashville, I love to get me some good Nashville chicken. So
okay.
they got some really good barbecue chicken and hot chicken and all that there. So yeah.
All right. And as far as your musical playlist that you're listening to, who's currently on your playlist?
There is everything from 1950s country to today's rock. I mean, it's honestly just such a big spectrum. I would say current artist, so you don't have me talking about people like Kitty Wells and stuff like that. Current artist, I love Hardy. I think he's doing amazing things right now. Hardy's great. Um, Kaylee Hammock, Ashley McBride, obviously Carrie and Miranda, the two queens of country. But people like that. But yeah, I'm really into Hardy right now. Just that rock country. It's just really, really cool and really different.
Okay. And given the opportunity to perform with anybody, either living or in the past, who would you love to be able to perform with on stage?
That's such a good one. And I feel like I say a different answer to this and every answer I come in. I think Elvis would be so cool. I just watched the Elvis movie and that was great. But when I was little, we had this school play, and when I was in the second grade, and no guy had a deep enough voice, so I played Elvis in the school play, and I was almost named Presley, so because my daddy was so obsessed with Elvis. But yeah, I think he would be great.
Oh, wow. And I'm definitely a fan of Elvis, although I have not made it out to see the latest movie yet. What did you think of it? Did it do justice?
I think it did. Like I said, like I grew up watching Elvis concerts on the TV just because my daddy's always been such a huge fan. So I really think it was pretty spot on. There were certain things, even the movie came out and admitted that it wasn't identical to what happened. But as far as, his performance ways and personas and everything, I feel like it was pretty close, but I loved it. It was a 3 hour movie, but it felt like 30 minutes.
Hmm, okay. Yeah, I definitely want to get out there and see it, and I'll eventually do so. Tell me, what's one thing that really annoys you about other people?
Oh gosh. I can't stand. There's a good bit. I can't stand people who have such high goals but don't have the work ethic to put into it. I feel like that's one of my main ones. People who sit around and they're like, "Oh, but you're so lucky. You have X, Y, and Z, and you got that by doing nothing." People like that.
Okay, that would annoy me too. And given the chance to, somebody your age or a little bit younger, to give advice to as far as them wanting to get into the music industry, what advice would you give them?
Definitely stay grounded in your love for your music. There's going to be a lot of things that change, that go up and down in this industry, regardless of, your talent or your morals or who you are or anything like that. So make sure your main focus and priority is your music and, making the music that you want to make. Because as soon as you start focusing everything you have on a number or statistic, your mental health is going to take a toll. So just try and, keep that love of music first.
Definitely some good advice to follow. And I know you're just riding the coattails right now. Like I said, your latest single's doing well and you're going to be promoting that. But what's left for the remainder of the year for you? Where should we expect you to see you? Where, are you coming out with more music? What's going on in Hillary Reese's world for the rest of the year?
Well, this Friday, August the 12th, I do have a new music video coming out. So I'll have some, promotion things to do like with that. But I'm getting some shows together, so everybody can stay tuned for those. I can't quite announce them yet, but you can stay tuned on my social medias for those. I don't think there's going to be any more new music for this year. I could be wrong, but I'm really focusing on quality over quantity. So just know when you do get music from me, it's going to be the best that I have and that I can do.
Okay. And if one of us should come to one of your shows, what should we expect out of you?
You can expect a party. I'm not the type of person to be super outgoing, in public. And, if you meet me just in passing or whatever. But when you come to one of my shows, I'm all over the stage. I'm dancing. I'm crazy, but it's just one big old good time.
All right. Well, I definitely want to make it to one of your shows in the near future. And I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast with Wildfires, another great song and great video that I like by you. But before we go, I just want to say, Hillary, thanks so much for being on my show. For those that are listening or watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out Hillary Reese on all her social medias. She's very active. You can find the title down here, official Hillary Reese, correct?
Correct. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And if you ever want to be a guest on Hank's Corner, you're more than welcome to do so.
Thank you.
Those lights break quick, but what you don't know.